Hey everybody, this is Mr. Horton with a series of video backup lessons for Studio Art 1, Studio Art 2, and film appreciation and cinematography. Verni Arts, Iona Prep. A classwork grade on a shading scale, and a project grade on a value study where I'm making you guys draw boxes under light sources. Okay, we're about to do shading scale right now. So what I need you guys to get out, I need you guys to get out your sketchbook. I need you to put your sketchbook horizontal. I want you to write on top of the sketchbook value study dash shading scale. Okay, I want you to get out 5 things. I want you to get out your eraser. I want you to get out your pencils. So this includes the number 2, this includes the 4H, and it includes the 2 pencils we haven't used yet, the 3B and the 6B. If you remember on one of the first days of class, I told you guys we would eventually use these, but not until way later on. Okay? All right, so first thing we're going to do. Oh, you also need out your ruler. Okay, ruler. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to take my ruler here, and I'm going to put it down on the page, and I'm going to find 8 inches. I'm going to use the number 2 pencil to write this out, but I'm going to find 8 inches, which is about here. And I'm going to go to the 8 inches, and I'm just going to trace the ruler going around 8 inches, so it looks like that. Okay? And then I'm going to close this off right there. Okay? Then I'm going to put my ruler touching the bottom of that whole thing. And at every inch break, I'm going to just do a check. So at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, I'm going to do a break. And then I'm going to do lines. Now with my Sharpie, you don't have to do this, but I'm going to do it. I'm then going to, with those lines, I'm going to ink those. But just those break lines. That. So you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 boxes in total in a horizontal line. Now above this, we're going to write light shadow on the left. We're going to write dark shadow on the right. We're going to do some arrows that look like this. Okay, and now under this, I'm going to label my pencils here, going on a gradient, because that's what this is going to be, a gradient of shadow, going from light shadow to dark shadow using the 4 pencils. So I'm going to do 4H, 4H, number 2, number 2, and remember the number 2 is an HB, HB, I'm putting that underneath it. I'm going to do a 3B, and then a 6B and a 6B. Okay? Now, on and off here, starting at the 4H, I'm doing L, D. Number 2, L, D, 3B, L, D, 6B, L, D. Okay, so L and D. L equals light, D equals dark. Or another way to look at this is press, don't press. Okay? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the respective pencil that is in the box above it. And if it's 4H light, I'm going to take my 4H pencil and I'm going to color in that box with the pencil lightly, meaning I'm not really going to press too terribly hard. My next box over, 4H dark. I'm going to do the same thing, but now I'm not going to crazy press. I'm going to press enough that I can see a visual difference. All right, I'm going to do this for the remaining pencils, okay? So number 2 light, number 2 dark, 3B light, 3B dark, 6B light, 6B dark, okay? I'm going to speed this up. Okay, so I'm back here. I've shaded in now my shading scale here, going from light shadow to dark shadow. Okay, and it might be a little bit bumpy. Remember, it depends greatly on the texture of how much you're pressing and where you're pressing and where your gaps are. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do, I got a paper towel here. Okay, what I'm going to do with the paper towel is I'm going to just keep folding it in half until I can't anymore. So I'm just going to keep folding it and folding it and folding it and folding it until I get it to about this. Okay, and this is going to be how we blend with the paper towel, like this. You can use your finger if you want to use your finger, or if you have better drawing tools and you have a blender at home, you could use a blender, but probably none of you have that. So use a paper towel. Now, the general rule of thumb with a blender is you never blend dark to light. You never touch dark tone and then bring it to light tone. The reason why you don't do that is if I were to blend this first, and then I were to go down here, it actually would tone up the 4H to be closer to about a 3B light or 3B dark. Versus if you blend light to dark this way, so always light tones first and then move up towards dark tones, it actually amplifies the tone in front of it and makes it make logical sense. All right, so I'm gonna take my blender and I'm gonna just start kind of moving it and pressing it. You'll notice that the 4H doesn't move very much, but you will see, again, some degree of ink on the paper towel. Okay, it's also gonna smoke around a little bit. You're not gonna wanna do that too much. Don't go like this, don't like you're washing a plate. Okay, you're gonna wanna kind of do like small circles inside. I'm then gonna go to the 4H, and you'll gradually see, the 4H dark, and then you'll gradually see that it's starting to get a little bit easier to blend and a little bit darker. I'm now in the number 2 dark. So there's those. Now, my next step here is I'm going to go through and I'm just going to kind of clean up as best I can some of the outside shading if it happened. Okay, so this is your shading scale. Now, when we do the actual value study project, the project where we're actually going to be shading in boxes, you can at least refer to this to see what the dark tone is on each color, depending on the pressure you're using. All right, so next thing we're gonna do, we're actually going to draw in 3 shapes, and we're gonna fabricate shadow on these shapes. So the 3 shapes we're going to draw, down at the bottom right here. You guys are gonna give me a circle, just as best you can. You guys are gonna give me a square. You guys are gonna give me a triangle. And for the square and triangle, we're gonna do 3 diagonal lines coming off the cube, 1 diagonal line coming off the triangle. On the cube, I'm gonna connect these lines. And on the triangle, I'm gonna go from this one little diagonal up to the point just to make it 3D. Okay? So we got a sphere, we got a cube, we got a triangle. Okay, now we want to establish our light source. So I'm going to say for each of these that the light source is coming in from an 11 o'clock. I'm going to write over here steps. Okay, so my first step was what we just did. We're going to draw the object. And this is with either a number 2 or a 4H. And it's going to be light. Okay, so that's these 3. We just did that, step 1. Step 2, we are going to draw in the ground shadow if it is shown. And this is specifically with the lightest pencil. So this is, you kind of have to do this with the 4H. And it has to be light. Okay, so my next step here is I'm going to take my 4H pencil and I'm going to establish where my ground shadow is per where the light source is. So for the sphere, the ground shadow probably looks something like this. A little curve. For the cube, it's going to probably look like this. For the triangle, not surprisingly, is going to be a triangle. Okay, so these are my ground shadows. Again, light. Okay, step 3. We're going to draw in any shadow lines. And this is also with a 4H light. Now, what I mean by shadow lines is if there's ever anything on the shape where you could definitively see two tones in shadow. So for example, on the sphere, which doesn't have any corners, you very well might see actual shadow breaks. Meaning, if you were to look at it, you're almost gonna see like these like curved areas which break the shadow up. Which means that this area might be pure light, this might be 4H, this might be number 2, this might be 3B, and then the ground shadow would be 6B on the bottom, okay? So I'm gonna draw in any of my shadow breaks. Again, follow along with me here. Number 4, I'm going to fill in shadow. This is light, dark, or middle, medium, which is something we didn't do up here. A middle tone between the two tones, but you could do that, okay? It's harder, but you could do it. Light, middle, light, dark, or medium. All right? So starting with the sphere. Where light is directly touching, that's paper. And then using the gradient as if it was wrapped around the sphere, we're going to start with a 4H pencil. And I'm going to shade in. I'm not going to even do light and dark, really. Again, it's a preferential thing. I'm just going to kind of shade it in 4H. Just kidding, somewhere in the middle. I'm going to go to my next tone, my number 2 pencil, and I'm going to shade that in. As we move further away from the light, everything gets darker. I'm going to go to my final tone, my 3B on the sphere. 3B normally. Again, I know you're having trouble seeing this because this is 3B because the camera isn't picking this up as well. 4H. This is number 2. And then finally, the ground shadow, the darkest part, 6B. To the cube. So I know that the ground shadow is the darkest. I'm going to color in the ground shadow 6B. Okay. I would say light is probably touching up here. You probably have a shadow break right about here, which means that this is a 4H. This is a number 2. This is a 3B. So I'm going to color in these areas. You might even have it where, again, we're fabricating this, but you might even have it where the light goes like this. So that's pure light, okay? Triangle. Again, we're going to have a 6B ground shadow. I would say you might have a shadow break right here. And this would be number 2. This would be 3B. And this whole thing, I would say, might be 4H. Again, fabricating it. All right, there we go. I got the 3 shapes shaded in. All right, so my next step, number 5, you're going to blend using a blender. You can make another one, or you can take the one we just used even, and you can flip it over to this side. Okay? And again, I'm blending light to dark. So I'm going to find every 4H tone. That's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to blend the 4H tone. I'm now going to the next tone. Next tone, the 3B. And the final tone, the 6B. Now, I have these blended, and you can see these are super smoky. So our next step here, number 6, you're going to erase smoke. So I'm going to go through with my eraser, and I'm going to clean up. And then finally, step 7, you're going to repeat step number 1. So you are going to redraw the object with a number 2 or a 4H pencil. All right, guys, this is the classwork grade. So here's what I want you guys to do. I want you guys to draw this up almost exactly like I did it. I want the shading scale to look pretty close to what mine is. If these steps are squished up here or down here or something, that's fine. I also want you guys to draw in the 3 shapes all on one page, shaded in. So get it kind of close to this if you can. I want you guys to photograph this, upload it to Classroom, Counts as a classwork grade. If you have any questions about the assignment, email me or refer to the project on Google Classroom. See you in class.